We express our extreme gratitude to all of you to, be able to be with us and brainstorm with us on a very specific and important topic that has been, being discussed around on the role of civil society in facilitating energy transitions going ahead in India. And we say it's decode because we are still decoding that what should be the role and how we should be looking ahead on this. We have a small presentation that will help us, guide through this brainstorming session and discussions. But before that, I would like it to Srini to, do setting the context and from Vasudha and, setting a little bit of a rationale.
Thank you, Brinda, and a very good afternoon to all of you. At the outset, our apologies. I think the initial time was 3 o'clock, but then I had a flight to catch. So I requested for the meeting to be advanced to 2 p.m. So I think there was a little bit of a communication gap there. But nevertheless, thank you so much for joining. As Brinda said, I'd like to sort of set a quick context as to why this webinar and why you all. So basically, this is part of a larger project that we are implementing, which is supported by a consortium of funders on how to usher in a people-centric transition to to India's energy transition journey, or the transition journey, I would say. I wouldn't really single out energy, but I would look at more transition, India's transition to a net zero economy, if I could put it that way. So the whole idea is, as Vinda said, one is, what is the role of civil society in facilitating a people-centric transition or just transition? Of course, the word just transition is not palatable to a wide range of people or to some sections of the community, so we call it people-centric transition. Well, whether you call it the just transition or whether you call it the people-centric transition, what we're looking at is a transition where no one is left behind, while India marches from to a net zero economy by 2070. One of the tasks that we've been mandated to be engaged in as part of this larger project is to identify potential civil society groups who could be supported in the short, medium, and the long term to work on the issue of people-centric transition. And our approach in mapping the NGOs was not to look at the usual or the organizations that are working only on energy issues, but also looking at organizations that are looking at broader development issues, looking at climate adaptation, looking at various aspects of disaster risk mitigation, and so on and so forth. And more importantly, working at the communities level with the people and with good engagements with a wide range of stakeholders within the specific geographies of the operation, whether it is with, in addition to communities, also with district administration, block administration, village administration, and so on and so forth. And it could be a wide range of issues. It could be from sustainable agriculture to livelihood enhancements, trainings, etc. So we actually covered a broad spectrum and not just zero down on organizations looking at energy issues. So it was not just energy alone. For us, transition would mean land use change. It could mean transport change. It could mean shift from coal to or fossil fuel to renewable. It could be anything. So we looked at the broad spectrum, and that's how we did this mapping of NGOs or groups that we thought could add a lot of value in bringing in a people-centric transition. Groups that have already worked in the past on issues related to, like I said, a broad range of issues on development and working with communities and so on. And people with and NGOs or groups that have had a track record of delivery and a track record of engagement, and that was the approach. We also, another mandate of ours is also to come up with a briefing paper, which again identifies or will delve deep into the role of civil society in people-centric transition. So, what is a people-centric transition? What does it entail? What role can civil society play in that? It could range anywhere from skilling and reskilling and capacity building to anything, all right? To bring in that kind of policy framework that can help communities to shift to the or to flow with the transition tide rather than be left behind. So there could be a wide range of issues that one could look at. So we are looking at these aspects, and that's why we thought that we would organize a small brainstorm session where we invite select NGOs or groups that are working on this. I know that some of you are not necessarily NGOs, but then the groups that are working, your legal character may be more like a LLC or whatever it is, but that's okay. As long as you're working with the communities, we also would bring you in the NGO bracket, so to speak. So the idea was to invite a few of us to have a freewheeling discussion, open discussion. Chatham House, of course, based on a Chatham House, there'll be no attributions, but understand from you on what energy transition or what just transition or what people-centric transition would mean. What are the sectors that could be impacted? What are the kind of NGO intervention, or what are the role of civil society? What are the kind of interventions that civil society can play? What are the kind of NGOs that we should be looking at? Because while doing this mapping, we may have inadvertently left a good number of groups that may be qualified to work on this. The idea is then that we present the NGO mapping once it's done with all our inputs, all your inputs. We would then present it to the consortium of funders, and then they would then reach out to you in due course. We do not have their calendar on when they would reach out to you all, but they would reach out to you at some point in time and take this discussion forward. So from our side, it's also that we need many people to work on these issues, many organizations to work on the issues. We need to have collective actions, and it's not just one organization or two organizations that can play a role. There's a role for a lot many of us, many organizations, and we need to bring in the kind of expertise. We need to bring in the kind of skill sets that and the experience and the knowledge that lies with all of you, to ensure that the transition is just a transition and does not leave anyone behind. So with that, that's sort of the rationale, that's sort of the context behind this brainstorm. So I think the way we have structured it, Brinda, is that we give each of you a few minutes, 5-7 minutes, whatever it is, to explain the kind of to brief us in the kind of role that you're playing, and then we would have an open house where we'll then discuss what are the kind of roles that NGOs
Devina,
play.
please share the presentation.
I know that there was a little bit of a confusion in the initial mail that was sent when we said energy transition. I just want to clarify that we are not looking at just energy transition. We're looking at transition as a whole. So we are looking at, of course, energy is perhaps a larger chunk, but there are other sectors also where transition will be impacted. And even in the energy transition, there will be community impacts, and many of you are working with communities. So that's how it is. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's basically just to set the context and the rationale behind today's meeting. Thank you very much once again for joining us. And once again, our apologies for that slight shift in the time. I'm the culprit. Thank you.
Thank you, Srini. And without taking much of the time, I think we want all of us to be talking, you guys to be talking more and be talking less. So
but Brinda, you would want if anybody has any questions on that, because the agenda is open house in case people.
I'll just try to put it to in presentation mode. The agenda. Can you shift to the second slide, Devina? the flow of the discussion, please, and put it on the slideshow mode so that everybody can see it.
Yeah, is the screen not visible right now?
The screen is visible, but it's not moving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, now it's gone. Can you just, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into the discussion, after Srini, if there is any questions that are there, I think we can take it in advance. And in case in terms of if there is more discussion that needs to happen in terms of the understanding on the rationale behind this, we can, any questions from the table as of now. So the way we have set in, it's a very fluid kind of dialogue that we wanted to. Anybody can raise their hands and just say anything. It's more like a dialogue that we wanted to encourage, and there is no one sort of any particular format where we are doing like a panel discussion. No. Now moving on, and then we'll have a short introduction with all of you. We have certain guidelines for all of you to look at, and based on which you can provide a little bit about everybody to know about each other's organizations a little better. And now, while Srini has set a lot of context in terms of the background and why are we doing it, we are trying to create a platform of some of these diverse CSOs together, and discuss with them the role of CSOs going forward. Because so the very important role that this project was that what do people-centric approaches look like for an equitable and inclusive energy transition? And why this discussion is very pertinent in all respects is that who is going to anchor all of this? There is government players, there is private players, but there is a CSO, which is, acts as a intermediary for all of them. And that is why it's a very central part to all of this equation. Now, we all know that climate change is a problem of global scale, but it requires local actions. And it is very important to, when it puts in this perspective of a development country like India, we know that there is no solving of climate change and development issues without looking at decentralization and local action. Now, we see that in the philanthropy space, in the CSO space, etc., there has been an intent that has been lately been visible to look at local action. But something that is very important to look at is that there needs to be a robust architecture of change, right? What are the kind of funding requirements? What are the kind of structures? What are the kind of operational modus operandi that we are looking at? Then second is a consensus that there is no duplication of efforts is happening. And also everybody is doing their some bit in this direction. And third is that while we know that all of this process, when we are looking at civil society action, when we are working with communities, it's a long-term process, but we still need to have some time-bound actions for ourselves. So based on all these things, today we want to answer 3 questions, and more than that, discuss with you and take your inputs is where and how we as CSOs see ourselves when we are involved in this energy transition. And I use the energy transition term as a blanket term because it is a very complex term looking at multi-dimensional, multi-operational and multi-stakeholders together. And that is why I just, use it for simplification. Then what are the potential areas for future opportunities and engagement that we see? And lastly, do we have any innovative, good CSO working platforming models that could be replicated and discussed, even if it is outside the domain of energy, in health, in education, in women's empowerment, various other sectors? So that is something that we are keen to discuss today. And this, as mentioned earlier by Srini, this is the house rules are that we are following Chatham House rules. Nobody is going to be accorded any names, and it's going to be anonymous. We are recording it only so that we do not miss out any of these insights. And that's the reason. But yes, it's going to be completely in a Chatham House rules based discussion. Moving on to the next slide, I will now, like to just say that, each one of you, if you can take 5 to 7 minutes of your each and look at the kind of things that we want to, understand from this about your organization, what it's been doing, what are the kind of key verticals and themes of engagement. Are there any specific areas that we can say that this particular organization works in, and or regions also, like the smaller, like Srini said, right, block level, village level, or just the state level. And then you don't have to say in terms of active collaborations. In case you are free and willing to share, we are also like to learn about some of these collaborations, so that we would be able to say that, okay, this organization's USP is in this, and that's how one organization can do it and look at replicating this work there and in other states. So this is how we thought that we could have the introduction round. I would like to bring in maybe we can start with Shirazji, if you want to take the plunge and talk a little bit in terms of GIAG, because we have been working together and doing a very important role on the Gram Panchayat plans, and we would be eager to learn, and especially people from Score Life Foundation, Arindam and Kunal from PDAG, and Ankita from Switch On are also there. Sorry, we just thought we should do line by line. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Vrindaji. First of all, apologies for my confusion. I thought it is 3 o'clock. So anyways, I'm here. And about the organization, I am Shiraz Vaji, and I come from Gorakhpur Environmental Action Group, which is an organization which is completing 50 years this year. And we started as a kind of environmental awareness education organization, shifted to sustainable agriculture, and finally now for the last 2 decades, we are also in the field of climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction. Our main area of work, geographically, is northern India. And if we call northern India, it is mainly in the flood affected and the drought affected areas of like Bundelkhand and all. This drought prone area, and some of the regions in the eastern part, like Bihar, some part of Assam and Bengal, but mainly the eastern UP. This is the main area of our operation. And the key verticals, so far as the key verticals are concerned, we are mainly on sustainable livelihood. And when we say livelihood, it is mainly agriculture-based livelihood, and that too focusing on small, marginal, and the women farmers. So that is the main focus, whether it is sustainability of farming, or it is climate resilience in the farming system, or the extension mechanism, and so on. And the second vertical, if we say we are also kind of knowledge support or technical support provider, providing support to various governments, like Government of Madhya Pradesh and Government of UP. We are providing the technical support in terms of health-related aspect. In Bihar and UP, we are working, and also Uttarakhand, some part of Uttarakhand, we are working on climate resilient planning and disaster risk reduction. And we are also, so far as the main focus is concerned, we are mainly on community-centric mechanisms of resilience, what Srinivasji and Vinda, you also mentioned. So basically, it is how the capacities of the marginalized communities can be built up, and what support mechanisms are required to be provided for enabling them to take action, to evolve solutions at the local level. So that is the main focus, what we have been doing. We are working with Government of India, Ministry of Science and Technology as a core partner in terms of technology development. At the same time, we are working with various other organizations for climate and disaster resilience. Regarding the active collaboration and the partnership, we have partnership with some of the academic institutions like Banaras Hindu University, like National Institute of Disaster Management. So all these organizations actually, on the core areas of our intervention, we are collaborating and supporting, and also taking support from them. But at the same time, we are also getting help from those institutions. Vasudha is also one of the partners. What we have been working mainly on the Gram Panchayat level planning for the disaster, the climate resilience. So that is also one of the approach. So basically, this is the overall introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Shraza. I think this is helpful. So when you say Northern India, I think it covers most part of it, or is it mostly centric to UP, Rajasthan, UP, Haryana, or is it mostly UP is what I understand, but I would like to understand this better.
It is mainly UP, and especially Eastern UP and North Bihar. I mean, if we say very specific, but largely it is Bihar, UP, Uttarakhand, and Madhya Madhya Pradesh.
If I can add here, I just want to, for all of us, Shirazi has been very active in tracking the negotiations, the climate negotiations for many years. And so he's also familiar with the kind of developments that happen at the UNFCCC front. So, and where, you know, a lot of these decisions on just transition and all of that has been coming in recent years. So I just wanted to add that perspective. On the Gram Panchayat Action Plan, Vasudha and GAG, we're working very closely with the Gorakhpur Environment Action Group, with Shirazi, particularly and his team. An angle that we're also bringing in here is to explore some of the Gram Panchayats that we have, for which the plans are developed and likely to be launched very soon in the next couple of weeks, hopefully, fingers crossed, is also to convert them into solar Gram Panchayats or solar villages, in line with the PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. So that's something that we're also looking at. I just wanted to add that perspective.
Thank you, Srinivas.
Okay. So now, Arindam, would you like to go next? And I think right now, as Srini mentioned, that we have certain organizations in the room which are not really in terms of operational, structural mode, not CSO, but in terms of their operations, yes. And yeah, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Srini, and thank you, Vrinda, Devina, and the team at Vasudha for first of all hosting something meaningful as this, and thank you Shiraj ji for also opening. हम लोग मिले नहीं हैं कभी, आज मिलने का मौका हो गया, और आपके काम के बारे में और GA जी के काम के बारे में काफी लास्ट 2 साल से हम लोग भी फॉलो कर रहे हैं उस चीज को, तो अच्छा लगा आपके बात सुन के. So I'm the co-founder and partner at the Policy and Development Advisory Group. We are a social impact and public policy advisory and a research firm based out of New Delhi. And broadly looking at through our work across both public policy advisory, social research, and strategic communications to drive a single point vision, which is people-centric public policy. So basically, where any form of public policy design making initiation should primarily have the nuances from the people and communities integrated into its thinking. So that's like the core, kind of thing that we have been looking at. Established in 2018, and over the last 6.5 years, we have worked across with several international, national institutes of eminence, state governments, Niti Aayog, and other both non-for-profit, organizations, research organizations, multilaterals. Broadly, as part of our overall portfolio of work at PDAG, we have very clear 4 core practice areas and themes under which we club our work. One of them being labor, mobilities, and the future of work. 2 is basically climate and sustainability. 3, political economy and governance. 4, digital cultures and futures. So broadly, in the purpose of what, the discussion today, our work on climate and sustainability has been kind of been shaped over the last few years, broadly with the idea that, climate change and its associated discourse in India, and especially not only in India, but global South, is very highly dominated with, the very top heavy kind of a discourse. And that is something that we had experienced while working with multiple state governments during conversations, high-level meetings, as well as, again, in parallel discussions and conversations around climate change related issues at the grassroots. And when I say grassroots, particularly with Panchayati Raj institutions, especially the Gram Panchayat, the Panchayat Samiti, the Jila Parishad, and again, the district, the block, and thereafter. So our work so far is primarily centered on RNE, which is research and evidence within climate. And our work has taken us to Ladakh, where we studied with the University of New South Wales, looking at what community response towards rural electrification and especially renewable energy programs are, and how they are kind of better coping in terms of the capacity, as well as to also kind of understand the preparedness to transition from normal sources to RE sources. We have also looked at the impact of climate change, especially on small and marginal landhold farmers, especially women, small landholders in Bihar. This was with the International Growth Center and a couple of our affiliate researchers at the School of International Trade and Science in JNU. We then have slowly moved into the entire idea of looking at people and communities around the discourse of just transition. I know Srini has made a very good point about why before even the transition bandwagon is complete, we should not be actually saying just transition, because no one actually is aware whether the transition is going to be just or unjust. So broadly looking at the entire framework, if you look at some of the established global frameworks around energy transition, particularly from the fossil to non-fossil sources, broadly there are 2-3 established frameworks. The ILO has one, the World Bank group has one, and our work with World Bank actually was to kind of look at a first ever country evidence with Ministry of Coal and Mines to look at what is the kind of apprehension, aspiration, vulnerability, and access to resilience mechanisms through social welfare and other institutional mechanisms that people and communities have in 2 very diverse coal mining regions. And when I say 2 diverse coal mining regions, these were 2 coal mining regions in Jharkhand where we undertook this work, one of which is supposed to operationally phase out by 2030. And the other right now, as we speak, is running at a 135% of its peak operational capacity, which means that for its exhaustion to complete, it would be another 20 to 30 years. Yet they are simultaneously located in 2 neighboring districts. So that 1 year of this entire in-depth work and multitude of conversations with multiple layers of informality that exist. And just as a matter of fact, I myself hail from a coal mining region, come from the city of Asansol. So what we have also seen was finally kind of evident during our work on this, where layers of informality were being able to be unpacked, and the kind of informality that exists within the informal sections, especially with prevalence to women, particularly their role in sorting, scrapping of coal, roadside coal cells, also threw up a lot of questions around when we are speaking of energy transition to meet the global and national goals. What kind of lens should both policy institutions, civil society organizations, research organizations should apply to better map and understand in relation to the macro and the microeconomic scenarios of that particular region? Because it's one part to say that, okay, people need to move to green jobs, we need to do upskilling to green skills, or we need to help set up green businesses. But how does one explain that to, let's say, a woman coal sorter from an OBC or a Dalit or an ST community particularly, who is intergenerationally been working, and that's the only skills that she has picked up? Or to a man who works as an informally contracted worker under the Coal India in one of the many coal mining regions across central and eastern India. So these are some of the core elements that also came up and has been placed, and it's the report is there. It's with the bank. We are supposed to have a consultation with the Ministry of Coal on this too. And if you all are aware, and I'm very sure you are, that based on some of this observation, not only from this particular work, but also from similar such other work, the Government of India also has responded in the Parliament in December 2023 that, and this is the response from the minister concerned, Prahlad Joshi, that there is no kind of foreseeable plan to enact a just transition roadmap as of now in India in a policy level. So we also have to understand, the precarity of meeting the global goals, the commitments, the NDCs. At the same time, the trade-offs of who is going to face that burden of the nation trying to meet these global goals. So this trade-off is very high, as at least is what we at PDAG strongly believe. And because our work, not only in energy transition, but also in governance and political economy, has taken us to most of these places in central and eastern India, which will face the brunt in the near future, probably 20 years, 30 years, 40 years from now. And I'll not go much more detail into that. And some of our other work also involves working with state governments, mostly with Department of Tribal Welfare, the Chief Minister's offices in multiple states. We have also worked very closely on migration with Niti Aayog in the post-pandemic and the COVID era, and also instituted the Safe and Responsible Migration Initiative, one of its own in the country in the post-pandemic era, with the government of Jharkhand and UT Ladakh and government of Kerala, which looked at bringing the entire discourse of making migration a safe and responsible informed choice. And much of that is also what we saw, in a lot of these conversations and also on the field, not only in terms of the transition study, but also in one of our other landmark initiatives, which is the Conference of Panchayats on Climate Change, which we have been doing since 2021, is that migration and especially climate-induced human mobility is a phenomena which is happening as an undercurrent in the rural economy. Yet, at some level, there is I would say there's an apprehension for policymakers and organizations to actually accept it the way it is, and rather look at it from the more conservationist viewpoint that, let's look at jobs locally. Because we also have to tie that entire aspect around that every passing day, we are seeing, farm costs increasing, especially in terms of the inputs. The modalities of climate and the adverse effects of climate events, especially the rapid onsets, are also being very sudden and sporadic. And while that is happening, people's aspirations are also rising. So how does this balance of transition from, farm to non-farm, non-farm to farm, so rural to urban, and within all of this, the precarity of mobilities is something that people either are getting forced to undertake, or for the lack of better options or lack of information and communication, are kind of going uninformed. So as a result, there's another kind of shock that people are facing once they reach to the cities. So I'll stop here. And
Arindam, great. I think there were some very, very important points by you, and this is something that we are trying to also take it together, that energy transition is not just about energy, and it is a lot more diverse issues, and you touch exactly there in terms of gender mainstreaming. The impact on women is something that we need to see. Communication, so lack of consumer communication, information asymmetry is leading to a lot of uninformed practices. Then third, I think skill and capacity, and migration. I think these are the 4 key points that I really took out from what you spoke, and that is exactly something also built in the second aspect of our brainstorming session. But we'll delve into more. I would like maybe Madhubanji to come in and talk about the recent. I think Madhubanji, we tried to look about your organization, and we were unable to find it as of now. And that's also, I would want you to talk about it, that how setting up an organization, a CSO, right, is a difficult, and what are the kind of other institutional challenges that are there associated when we are looking at this kind of work. Over to you, Madhubanji.
Sure. Thank you very much, Brinda. And I think thanks to the Vasudha Foundation, Srini and Arindam and Sirajji, they had already set the context as far as the today's topic is concerned. I think these kind of discussions among us is very, very important, because whether this is happening at the ministry level or at the some part of parliament, as Arindam said, or at India Heritage Centers, are at a very, very local level. But I think this is a great importance to have such discussions. I represent School Livelihood Foundation. I'm one of the co-founders. So we started this School Livelihood Foundation in 2017. So this is 7 years plus organization. We are a social enterprise registered as a Section 8, but primarily a solution provider in the area of sustainable livelihood, and livelihood in a wider context, not in a very, very narrow context. So we have a very systematic approach and for the livelihood and enterprise development. When we started organization, for us, we had 3 thematic area, the resilience and access models, because that's why we had started this organization. I had worked with GIZ, Vedanta Foundation, Development Alternatives Group, and then was part of International Labour Organization, so on and so forth. But we realize is like some actions and impactful actions at the community level is very, very important, whether from the MDG to SDG or transition perspective. So that's where we thought like building community resilience and individual resilience is very, very important. So our first thematic focus is the resilience and access models. So under this, like we look at the institutional framework, thematic mainstreaming, and building people's capacity. The second one is the entrepreneurship development and enterprise development, because for any solutions, we need enterprising solutions, because if it's not enterprising solutions, it might not be that great in terms of creating long-lasting impact or ensuring self-sustainable practices or models. So that's where we look from the enterprise and entrepreneurship development perspective. So in this process, we create micro, small, and medium enterprises in central and northern part of India. Last but not least is the local knowledge convergence. As a country, we know we used to have a lot of local knowledge, but over a period of time, we started losing it because of something or other things. So our approach is how we can take up the best practices, technology integration, doing better documentation so that we can preserve those local knowledge. So these are the three thematic area as far as the aspects where we are covering through these thematic area is the financial literacy and financial inclusion, because our people, especially the community and individuals, when we talk about the rural part of India, they need to be better, they need to have a better understanding in terms of managing their finances. And government has a lot of schemes and program, but how those schemes and program can reach to the target group effectively. So for example, Arindam talked about the COVID. During the COVID, government has the PM Swanidhi schemes that was primarily to revive the economic engine, but even the government, service provider, and community, all these three players has a confusion about such kind of schemes and program. So we do this program in 6-7 states. In this financial year, we are reaching out to 80,000 women and adults and girls from the state, right from Maharashtra to Odisha, Bengal, Bihar, etc. So 6 states we are covering on that account. Enterprise and entrepreneurship, I had already talked about. So right from the farmer entrepreneurship to youth entrepreneurship to the women entrepreneurship, we have developed our own flagship initiatives called C Udyami and C Samriddhi, that is, and the Enjoy, which is a entrepreneurship journey of youth. So our work evolves in and around the enterprise and entrepreneurship development. The third is the sustainable community development and just transition. As Srini has said, like government don't want to use the word just transition. So during our intervention with TEDI, because we had implemented that project, we named it People-Centric Transition. So recently, the project was implemented in Jharkhand, Giridih district, and ISCOR Livelihood Foundation was part of this initiative right from co-creating the framework with TEDI team to implementing these solutions at a very, very community level to ensure and see what challenges would be when we are implementing such project and how we can create a better impact. And the other area where we are working are the market aggregation, climate smart agriculture, and strengthening institutions, because these are the key pillars. Coming back to the people-centric transition, I'll share our work, what we had done with TEDI. We just completed 2 months back that project. It was a pilot project, MacArthur funded was there. And under that project, we do understand from the fossil fuel perspectives and right energy transition and the community perspective, Our point was very much, as Arindam said, just means we don't know as of now, good, bad, ugly, how it is going to be, because as a country, we are still in a transition mode. We already had Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, but we know where we stand as of now. So our solutions was for this greedy reason, because men anyway, they doesn't have the alternative knowledge skills. They are bound and forced to play around coal as far as their livelihood is concerned. They will go by any means to these coal mines to bring the at least bread for the family, if it's not a butter. And our approach over there, because changing the male mindset is immediately is a bit difficult, because they need to bring the food to the family. But our transition could be a family transition also. So that's what I would like to bring it over here. It's not just the energy, it's not just people-centric, but how a family could be a transition, whether it's from fossil fuel to any other, from the livelihood, whether it's coal-dependent livelihood or any other sort of livelihood, how we can ensure the best practices are there. So under this project, we had targeted the women. We piloted this project in 5 districts, 5 villages, 5 Gram Panchayat in Giridih district. And there we started with financial literacy. As I said earlier, we ensure like every individual women in this village is financially literate, and they have access to the financial inclusion, whether being offered by the banking institution, central government, or the state government. It's not about people having money, but it's all about the utilization of money. You go to the deeper in the community, they are getting 400 to 800 per day by doing a lot of hard work, but at least 2/3 money is going in what we call unnecessary expenditures. It could be alcohol, it could be tobacco, it could be any other things, right? So we started over there, then we co-created the solutions with the women and the adolescent girls. Obviously, children are important player, because we have to inform and aware them. So the entire solutions we co-created with them. So from the financial, moving from the financial literacy to inclusion, we thought like skilling women is very, very important, whether it's from the green job perspective or any skills which will help them to move from the coal to any other things. And when they are doing a livelihood transition from coal to something else, at least whatever they are earning a little bit, their income should be intact. And once women are in position to understand those things, obviously later on the male members will also follow that. In this process, skilling was one of the important component, understanding the local resources and opportunity, and then the creation of the group enterprises. So we have created the 6 women-run group enterprises. And the beauty of this initiative was done because neither Vasudha nor SCORE or any organization can do the entire 360 aspects which is needed from the transition perspective. We had a very solid engagement of all the stakeholders, whether it's NABARD, whether it's a financial inclusion provider, whether it's banking institutions, whether it's livelihood missions, etc. So in a very short span of time, we could, and also the market player and academic institutions, because we had IIT Dhanbad and other knowledge providers, we could engage the public-private partnership over there, mobilize a little bit of CSR money as well over there. And then the backward and market linkages was created for this project. The whole purpose for this to understand whether peoples are ready for the transition or not, and even if they are ready, what would be the bottlenecks, challenges when they are doing, and what is the role of the entire family. I'm not going to talk about the plight all these communities are having when they are into the unauthorized coal picking, unauthorized coal mining. So everyone knows over here. So that is important things. As far as our work is concerned, we are into the Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, Bihar, Chhattisgarh,
Madhubanji, you
Rajasthan.
might want to fast track a little bit and close your
Yeah,
comments.
I'm just take 1 more minute max. Maharashtra and Jharkhand. We are a solution provider, so that is our approach. We look any problem from the solutions perspective, enterprising perspective. As far as collaborations and partnership is concerned, we strongly believe in partnership because that is the SDG goal number 13, and that's where we had taken that into the consideration. So at the district level, we have a good partnership. We are also operating in Bundelkhand region, so we have a partnership with all those academic institutions, research institutions, etc. So Brinda, this is in brief what I would like to mention over there, but we'll be happy to share and take the discussion forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madhubanji. I think we are already with, a lot of inputs by you and Arindam. We are already into the first brainstorming exercise where we wanted to look at various aspects of energy transition. And from you now, I hear about financial literacy, and I also look at the working with the MSME, because their resilience is something that we are also looking at in the light of energy transition. The digitalization aspect and how they are going to be impacted is something that we need to also work around in terms of energy transition. And one important aspect that I really found from your first level of thoughts was the ecosystem building, where you were able to bring in the entire ecosystem, whether it's NABARD or IIT or the farmers or other government stakeholders together to drive. So that is something that we're also talking about, right? The collaboration aspect and the partnerships. And that needs to not just go from 1 or 2 level, but it needs to like multiply and go multifold if you want to really meet the transition that is at bay, in order to, if you want to meet the 500 gigawatt, and if we are ready to look at the EV penetration and its impacts that is going to have overall on the economy. So and then the important point that you talked about, skilling and livelihood diversification, we really have Ankita from Switch On, who can really talk about, I think that is the organization, Ankita, where you can really come and talk about the work that Switch On has been extremely doing in on skilling and livelihood diversification.
Thank you so much, Vrinda. A very good evening to everyone. I'm so sorry for keeping my video off because of network issues. So thank you again for inviting me for this session. So Switch On is a 15-year-old organization, and we are registered as a non-profit under the Societies Act. And Switch On basically started very small with like 15-20 employees, and now it's a 170 employee organization, and we have spread across states and countries as well. We do have a presence in the US as Earthon Foundation. So when we started Switch On, it was 4 verticals. So they were agriculture, then energy, mostly renewable energy, then skilling and livelihoods, and environment and climate change, which was all about clean air, campaigning, and sustainable city, sustainable mobility, etc. But now, since the organization has grown so much, both horizontally and vertically, in such a short span of time, so we have consolidated all our initiatives under one single umbrella. So now we call it climate resilient agriculture powered by distributed renewable energy. So under that comes all of our initiatives, be it skilling, with which we have partnered with the Agriculture Skill Council of India, National Institute of Solar Energy. Then there are state organizations as well, like PBSSD. So these are our skilling partners. If I talk about agriculture, under agriculture, we are having this scheme by the Minister of Agriculture, Government of India, under which we are promoting almost 49 FPOs across the country. So for that, we are partnered with NABARD, SFAC, Niramac, NAFED, NCDC. And these are our partners for agriculture. And apart from that, we also have our in-house trainings and capacity building programs for like alternate wetting and drying techniques, tree techniques, and climate resilient agricultural practices. If we talk about energy, so mostly for renewable energy, we have partners and funders who are MacArthur Foundation, then there is Good Energies Foundation, and we have worked a lot with KPMG, then there is GIZ. We have recently wrapped up that project. And if you talk about some local partners, so we are working at the block level, subnational level, and at the national level as well. We did a lot of events. Some of them were with the MNRE, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. In Jharkhand, we are partnered with the JAREDA, that is Jharkhand Renewable Energy Development Agency, which is the nodal agency for promoting renewable energy technologies across the state. So these are our partners. And then if you talk about water may we have partnered with some institutes like there's IIT Bombay, then there is Jadavpur University, where we have spread a lot of awareness amongst people regarding sustainable use of groundwater, judicious use of groundwater. So all of these initiatives are under the same umbrella, that is CRA powered by DRE. And we kind of have the gender, that is women and renewable energy, is a cross-cutting theme across all of the initiatives right now. And right now we are working in 9 states, that is Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal, Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh. And in the Northeast, we have our presence in Meghalaya, Manipur, and Sikkim. So these are our operational states. And in terms of active collaborations, we are working very closely with the SRLM, that is State Rural Livelihood Mission, because a lot of our work is focused in livelihoods, then agriculture, and all of our cross-cutting themes. And of course, we have a very interesting project on women, where we are promoting these rural women entrepreneurs, and we have to introduce the distributed renewable energy techniques and systems into the rural women entrepreneurship program. We have another project in the northeastern part of West Bengal, that is regarding small tea growers and tea workers, that's in the tea gardens. So again, we have to we did a neat assessment, and we have to introduce renewable energy technologies in the tea garden areas as well, of course based on what kind of needs they have, what else we can introduce there. So all of these projects are running here and there. So our main focus is on West Bengal, Jharkhand, Odisha, and Maharashtra right now. Because after West Bengal, we are based out of West Bengal, actually Kolkata. But after West Bengal, if there is a second base which we are looking at, that is Maharashtra, Odisha, and Jharkhand, because there's a lot of potential in these states. We have already communicated with the local and the state level government and non-government partnerships and other CSOs as well. And we have realized there is a lot of collaboration and lot of opportunities if we specifically talk about the renewable energy sector. So we are looking at that as a second base. Then again, we have partnership with the RRA network, that is the Revitalizing Rainfed Area Network. Then there is WBSRLM. Then we have a working group for millets with Vasan as well, where we are promoting millets in Odisha, Jharkhand, and West Bengal. We've introduced recultivation of millets and processed and food products from millets as well. Our main beneficiaries are farmers, women, and if we talk about clean air network and sustainable cities, so our main beneficiaries in that area are youth, school children, doctors. So more or less, these are our areas of work. And thank you so much again, Brinda. And it's great to meet all of you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankita. I think I was glad I didn't know the flow, but I was glad I kept you in the last, because you really bring me to the next segment, where what we are trying to look at is that, a key challenge that we see in, there is a lot of rich history of people working across social justice and development issues, in CSOs like health, education, women empowerment. But we feel that there is a need when we're looking at civil society actors, how they can look at the technical expertise to require, that is to work on climate, as well as its interplay with other sectoral goals. And Ankita, you really highlight all of this together when we're talking of energy for all, where we bring in decentralization, the food security, looking at the role of millets in the country, and the energy requirement for growing all of this, which is dependent again on water. And then looking at health as a major objective within air pollution, with air pollution and issues like that together there. And obviously, at the cusp of all of this is rural development, which is the heart and takes place more in some of these areas. So moving on to, looking at and threading all of this together and the goal that we have, the first segment, and each one of you has really, given us some segue already into this. And Devina, let's go to the next slide on this. The next slide, dimensions of energy transition. Yeah. So here we try to, map the entire array of work that we feel that the, energy transition can take its form. And this is, starting from as broad and, bigger, where, as Shirazji is looking at international convenings in the COP, where we are looking at regulatory and policy-based research, and looking at where Vasudha is looking at, working on transition roadmaps and financial policies, where I hear this Madhubanji talking about it. So I think this is one set of piece. Then there is another which is exactly complementing the work that is needed in the climate space, which is focusing on governance and more in terms of circularity, in terms of land, water, fuel, biodiversity, restoration, etc. And then the third, I think all of us are doing, but then some of them are doing it more granular way, which is the social dialogue and the participatory lens, which PDAG highlighted. Then there is data-driven and techno-economic research, which brings to the more technical aspects of climate and energy research that we wanted to highlight, that, this is something that has been done. And then moving on to the subnational collaborative project focus, where we look at working with the government departments, improving their line of implementation, etc. And lastly, it's like specific sectoral focus projects, where Switch On is looking at agriculture and decentralization, and as one of its core sectors, and working together. Now, the idea here is, we have discussed about individual organizations, we have discussed about us but here we wanted to take you a little ahead and say, can we go back to the slide, Devina, that is there something that we are missing here in the whole CSO ecosystem, if we want to talk, and not about our individual, organizations, because I think the first part we have addressed in some form, where it is speaking to the organization's work and why. But do you think that there are any dimensions, issues, venues that we are not really highlighting in this area? And who are the critical stakeholders who needs to be really included, whether it's state actors, whether it's non-state? I really hear Ankita talking about SRLM and RRA, some of these collaborations. So anyone can, I'll just keep the house open, and anyone can come in here to, comment on some of these.
I think if you're talking about energy transition, what we have experienced because we did a lot of work at the grassroots level, so I think the approach has to be bottom up instead of top down. So I'll speak about two very different projects. So in the FPO project, it's a very top down approach. Like the deliverables are laid down, and you have to do this, you have to do that, and our beneficiaries are farmers, and sometimes it's very difficult to go according to the policies or the deliverables which has been laid by the top level of the strata. But if you're talking about energy transition, then of course the need must arise from the community. So if you talk about the critical stakeholders, I think in this case, it should be a need-based and community-driven approach. And that's about it.
So, first of all, I have already confessed that we are not working exactly on the energy transition and the energy sector, as Srinivas also mentioned. But I would like to highlight 4 or 5 points here. What is actually missing, or where we have to focus based on the experiences we have in different field locations. So one is that who are the actual vulnerable population? That is also something which is very important. So, the actions related to climate or disaster resilience may be uniform, but may be specific. The needed action has to be that these are actually very specific, addressing a group of people who are most vulnerable, to begin with. And there we feel that the spatial location of the people. So where are the people actually who are most vulnerable, identifying them in a village ecosystem, or maybe in a regional level? That is something which is very important, that sometimes basis, and the actions or the transitions are generally very kind of universal or very general. So that is something which is required. And there I would like to highlight the small and marginal farmers and the women farmers, which some of the other participants, they have also added and included. The second point which I would like to highlight here is that transitions doesn't work in isolation. Transition has to be in a particular system. That systematic systems approach, that is also very important. If we are doing in sustainable farming or climate resilient farming, introducing a particular seed, so that is not sufficient. You have to see the whole kind of ecosystem around that, the social aspect, the environmental aspect, the information and knowledge support, the extension support, and other things which come together as a system. So the system transition is something which I would like to highlight, is that the interventions are not in isolation, but they have to be in a systems thinking or systems approach, where the natural ecosystems also plays a very important role. For example, if we are doing something in a particular village or in a particular community, or maybe working on agriculture, but in the farming, I mean, lot is linked to the ecosystem, the natural ecosystem around the farms, like water bodies or green areas, the forest. So that system actually, I mean, that plays a very important role in terms of sustainability of any change or any transition. The third point which I would like to highlight here, like earlier also somebody has highlighted, indigenous knowledge, the knowledge which exists there on the ground. The synergy of science and indigenous knowledge is something which is so important in terms of developing local solutions or local transitions. It cannot happen either or. Maybe, I mean, it is not only local knowledge or it's not only science which will work, but the synergy in the local context is very important based on the local resources, based on the local situation. And there, I would like to highlight the space actually which is provided to the ground level communities or the communities. When we talk of the community-centric processes, it is also empowering the communities in terms of providing the space for them to innovate, to evolve solutions based on the local, I mean, science and knowledge, how they can evolve the local solutions. I mean, the way it has evolved from the community-based adaptation or community-centered resilience to locally led adaptation, LLA, what is being talked about now. So it is also important that how the space or the empowerment is given to the communities, especially the small and marginal farmers or the women farmers, in terms of evolving solutions at the local level, which is kind of more sustainable. And that actually is, I mean, demanding for the local transition. So how the local transitions can happen. The next point which I would like to highlight here is the behavior. The behavior of the community or the behavioral system actually which works. So it has to be a responsible transition, like what we have seen in terms of energy, that the solar water drillers have been given in a large quantity with big subsidy. But that also comes with kind of loss of the water, the way the water is being extracted, and the, I mean, it is excess of water is being extracted. So that is also something which is important, that with the kind of transition, it is also the responsible transition that is required. And that needs to be done at the local level, where the CSOs will have to focus. And the last, the thing actually which I would like to mention is that the extension is also very important, the knowledge of the extension. So it is the resilient extension or the climate resilient extension that will also have to be packaged or developed or provided to the most vulnerable population in terms of providing the livelihood. I mean, particular livelihood group, for example, a vegetable-based farming, or maybe a FPO or farmers producer organization, that what is the extension which is required in the local context. The extension will have to be also packaged in a form which caters to the local need or the local situation, that is, which will be required very much. And the last thing which I would like to hear, the synergy of the development, the rural development, as you mentioned, Vinda, is also important. How the developmental resources or the development can be synergized with the climate resilience. So, for example, I mean, we talk of the Gram Panchayat development plans, but how the Gram Panchayat or the developmental funds of the Finance Commission, how that can be taken or utilized for the resilience building is also something which is very much required. So that new and additional funds are not always required. There are also local funds or local resources which are used. So there are some of the points which I would like to highlight here at this point of time. Thank you.
So,
Yeah, Madhuvanji, you would like
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah. So
just let's keep it very brief, because we have 2 more sessions and we are like 20 minutes ahead. Yeah, we just have...
Sure. So completely aligned with what Ankita and Sirajji had said, even in our experiences working at the field and even in our approach also, uh, I think community knows, while they know the problems, they also know some sort of solutions as well. So I would like to put it like we have to co-create the solutions with the community, and that's what Ankita had said, the bottoms-up approach. So I think the more dialogue with the community will certainly help them to understand the levels of vulnerability. Uh, Here, when we unfold it further, like because they are the impacted, the people who are directly impacted, and the impacted by whom, so who are contributing to these impact, right? So understanding their perspective and plus regulators and like the people who are fitting out of these interventions. So I think what Siraji had said, ecosystem approach will certainly is the only solutions over here. And then whatever solutions we are talking about, institutionalization will become a very, very important. If it's not institutionalized, it might be just a research, it might be just a pilot, but it will not lead towards the sustainability of these interventions. And that's where, in my perspective, I think public-private partnership kind of initiatives are a movement will certainly solve the purpose, because at the end of the day, community or our people is facing the direct or indirect positive or negative impact of such things. And the story doesn't end here. I think once these initiatives are there, what Siraji had said, some systematic approach like for the follow-up, mentoring, hand-holding support, access to informations. So those kind of local platforms also need to be created where people can raise their voice and get the required assistance. Otherwise, it would be just a talk in the town, and the impact will not be all the transition we will not be able to create. So thank you, Vrinda. This is what I wanted to put it over here.
Very, very valid. I think, in terms of looking at institutionalizing and public-private partnership is something that is definitely the key of the hour. Another thing that before I hand it over to my colleague Sarthak to lead us to the next session, I just wanted to, all of us to brainstorm on two things as we move ahead in the session is, one is, what do we have for the community out there, the funder community, the philanthropic community out there? What are the specific asks that needs to be, reformed in the way fundings have been to, raise the kind of grassroots action that we are demanding? And second, as the CSO community, different levels, there's think tanks, there's CSO, there's CBOs, and there is trade unions and different groups. How do we scale up our efforts? And where each one of us coming from different organizations can really look at the role of anchoring some of this is something that, let's keep in mind for the next 15-20 minutes. Quickly, Sarthak, if you can facilitate for us the next.
Yeah, thanks, Brinda. And I've really enjoyed listening to all the inputs that others have given so far. And especially we have now have a good arsenal of different strategies and way forwards where we can take the concept of energy transition thematically, be it by the lens of looking at the world in a bottoms-up manner and complementing a bird's eye view lens, which has been the dominant narrative so far, or looking at things in connections with each other and a systems thinking, which also includes grasping the nerves on the ground and bringing voices from the ground on the tables of decision making and policy making. Now, I wanted to now quickly jump to the next question, which is very logically aligned to what we have been discussing so far. Now, given that we have these different things on the table on our canvas, that we can go this way and we can look at things in a different manner when it comes to scaling energy transition, be it looking at different actors and so on. Now, I want you to put on a hat of conveying all of this to a philanthropic donor. Why would a donor be interested in looking at a very complicated bottoms-up kind of an assessment of energy transition, or different things that you all have alluded to. And I want you to answer this why in a two-step manner. One is where you can shed some light on what are the existing operational and structural features that CSOs have. Are there any areas where we can plug in the existing loopholes, if there are any? And then what are the opportunities for further engagement? And more from the point of view of realizing the opportunities that we have already discussed and not maybe repeating it again. So if you can just take a minute and shed some light on the existing lay of the land of how CSOs work. Are there any challenges / opportunities? Because those are indeed the two sides of the same coin. And how do we go on in forward by plugging these loopholes, if there are any, and realizing all the nice things that you have said about going forward in energy transition. So yeah, the floor is open. Anyone can jump in. Yeah.
Hi, so thank you, Sarthak. So I'll answer this very quickly. So currently, the trend which we have seen, especially with our top funders, so the funders want to see a very integrated approach. So whenever we are talking about energy transition or decentralized renewable energy, we can't talk about energy, agriculture, water, and environment in silos, because all of them are interconnected with each other. And that is exactly the kind of model the funders want to see. It's not like you're asking for a processing unit, you will solarize it and give it to the community. No, they want to see what kind of impact it's having on the environment, what kind of impact it's having on the agriculture system, what kind of impact it's having on the water, because of one system, the other ones shouldn't be affected. So the more and more funders we're approaching right now, be it CSR or the international funders, or also even, for instance, our government funders as well. So everybody wants to see an integrated approach to that. So that is one thing. And the second one, that is opportunities for further engagement. So what we have noticed is that more and more funders are putting a lot of stress on themes like gender as a cross-cutting theme. So the reason why we included more and more women-centric approach and women-centric projects into focus, because people, especially the international funders, they like to see more women as beneficiaries, more women getting benefited, women having their own land and processing units and agribusiness centers and infrastructures being given in the name of women running these structures. How we are benefiting the women PG groups, that. And also, like, if we give you $1, can you just show me how are you spending that $1, how much it is spent on the beneficiaries, how much environmental impact you are creating in terms of carbon credits, then environmental impact, etc. So that's the kind of focus I think all funders have right now.
Yeah, I mean, great points that funders have an inclination and preference towards measurable indicators and impacts at scale. And in doing that, sometimes they miss out on the problematization aspect and treating issues as complicated as they are on the ground in their approach. And it's not also just about funders, but funders are also pretty much inclined to having CSOs with good networks and capabilities, perhaps with state governments or different agencies, and they might like a well-connected, well-networked CSO because that might entail in better impacts later on. So yeah, all points well taken. Anybody else would like to highlight this? Highlight some of these?
So
Two points here. One is, sorry, somebody was saying something.
please, Siraju, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Madan. One is that the donors and the funders, they also need evidences of the models or the interventions which have been proven on the ground and which works properly. I mean, which is tested and proven. That is also the role of the CSOs. I mean, they have large number of such experiences which can be shared for the donors to scale it or to take it to next level. The second is the space for evolving solutions. I mean, because climate resilience is something which is quite complex and very local. So, I mean, that needs evolving solutions from the bottom up approach we are talking. So that is also something which the donors will need to have that what are the mechanisms of evolving the local solutions. For that, they can provide funds in terms of technology development or in terms of solutions which can be done. And the last thing is, which I would like to highlight here, is also the horizontal extension of the horizontal information flow. There's a number of things actually which exist here, but is needed at some other point. So that extension or the communication mechanism, which is more kind of horizontal in nature rather than vertical, which is coming from the top, that is also something which will have to be facilitated. And for that, donors may be interested. So thank you.
Yeah. Great, thank you, sir. Madhubanji, you were saying
Yeah.
something?
So, Payaj, Siraj and Ankita said, and we know every donor funder, they want to understand what is the impact, right? And we know nowadays projects and programs are not funded for a long duration, right? 3 years, 5 years is not the case. Now the projects are designed, say, for a year or maximum 2, and it could be maximum 3 years, and budgeting are happening year-on-year basis, right? See, in those cases, like qualitative and quantitative impact, what we are creating, which is one of the very important component. I think when we are defining the projects and program, we have to have those lenses right from the beginning. And the efforts could be from the capitalization perspective. So whatever work has been done earlier, how we can build on it further, because it's not, community is not the new, right? It's not like first time some development interventions are going to be there. A lot of work would have been already happened. So we can explore those possibilities and how we can aggregate, align our thinking and processes, so that we, right from the day one, we start capitalizing on whatever work has been done, right? Because work is not going to be happening in silos. So for an example, there would be self-help groups, there would be banking institutions working, there would be MFIs working, there would be some interventions, because whether it's by central or the state government. So the project and program need to be designed in such a way how we can create a very tangible impact in the available time and resources, right? And they look at how the beneficiaries are the community overall quality of life is improved, our income is enhanced, right? So for all these things, they want to look at the real-time data. So that's where the technology integration becomes very, very important. We cannot be just doing the way we were doing things earlier, right? So a lot of technology solutions need to be embedded with these processes. And they try to look at post-project supports, right? Once the project is over, as an organization, how you are going to look into that, whether it's going to institutionalize ecosystems approach, someone is going to own it, right? And last but not least, they also try to understand what you as a CSO are bringing on the table, right? It could be a small pilot, it could be a technology platform, it could be your own network and connection, it could be the kind of people you are having in your organizations. So I think these are few aspects what I wanted to highlight over here.
Yeah, thanks. And one thing that all of you guys also alluded to is that efforts need to be at different scales. It has to be vertically speaking to a lot of audiences, as well as horizontal flows of informations across actors. And Arindam, if you're still here, can I interest you in a very targeted question? Because you mentioned that PDAG has been working with the global actors, including World Bank and the ILOs and so on, as well as at the very localized level on the ground, be it through their conference of panchayats or other evidence generation situated in a political, economic, geographical location. So how do we go about cultivating another PDAG in that sense? Somebody that can speak to multiple scales, both vertically and horizontally. What structural arrangements, what operational features are a prerequisite for a smaller, very niche organization to develop capabilities such as yours?
Yeah, thanks, Athak. I think, first of all, I would not like to hold ourselves in such a high pedestal. We are just learning and trying, and from all of you and from all the good soul people around. I think before we move to the creation of one more or entity or something of that sort, I do believe, and I'll be very honest here upfront, that there needs to be a mindset change in a lot of ways for so-called climate philanthropists in focused on this country, because the fact is that uh, too much of focusing on this entire idea of innovation and let's try to do something new, let's try to showcase a model. This model word, pardon me, is an overexploited word in our discourse. Like, when there is a state as an institution, when we are talking of a country which is a deliberative democracy, we need to figure out ways in which the existing systems could be nudged and worked with, rather than creating an encyclopedia of models which has no takeaway value after 2 years or 3 years, as so many of the colleagues here also referred to. जब तक वो प्रोजेक्ट का पैसा है, हमको कुछ दिखाना है, किसी फोरम में शोकेस कर देना है, बस उसके बाद क्या है, कुछ नहीं है. Until and unless we collectively are able to push back on this and then make philanthropies, and in such a scenario, I think someone's role like Vasudha Foundation's role could be very important. Because on a lot of conversations that we have been having with a lot of international and national, particularly funders, quote unquote, because bank is not a funder per se, bank is a lender, or a UN body has their own priorities for that matter. There is this, someone had mentioned it, I think, at the beginning of this session, particular sub-session, that there is this inhibition on the part of climate philanthropists or organizations or big foundations to actually take a deeper dive into complex challenges or complexities. And how can we talk about, and how can other organizations like Madhubanji, Sirajji, ya jo bhi, switch on Ankita, they are doing fantastic work, aap log, hum log, how can we talk about climate and transition without trying to not be complex? So first of all, that is a big pushback which I feel needs to go, and it can only go when there is a better capacity enhancement of CSOs also, who are doing fabulous work, and at the same time the people in the communities pillar, where their voices actually should be amplified. We need to also take a step back to see that, okay, we don't need to speak on behalf of anyone all the time. Let us make people speak for their own selves in forums like COP or any other such kind of things. Let there be some uncomfortable moments, because otherwise there won't be any pushback, and will continue to see a very top-heavy discourse that keeps focused on what my particular funding investment is focused on. Number two, we would be very happy, because we come from a very interdisciplinary background as a team, as an organization, as a group. And as a result, what we have tried so far in our modest capacity is to bring on board the ideas of communication, the ideas of rigorous research, and very strong expertise of working with highest to the lowest levels of governance institutions together, packed in one package whenever we are trying to do something. So we would be very happy, for that matter, to work with, say, as a part of a consortium or something, so where we could actually support in some of our very good colleagues here and other organizations also, maybe, that, okay, how can we better interpret maybe evidence around energy transition? How do we position that? Can we think of developing maybe a strong kind of a tool which communities maybe could use, with support from, let's say, CSOs who work actually on the ground day in, day out, where that could enhance their negotiation powers with the district and the other governance stakeholders towards an impending transition. We need to also think of it that at the end of the day, it's the state as an institution which can reach the last mile, but it can't, because no one nudges it to do so. It is lost in the everydayness of bureaucracy, everydayness of governance, where these things do not matter. And that's where, if some of the energy can also be translated, some of the pushback to the philanthropies, and particularly the last point, or point C, I'd like to make, and this I think Kunal and I both agree a lot, is there needs to be more investments by philanthropies on strategic communication and storytelling. Because if we cannot communicate the excellent work, let's say a GIAC does in UP, or Madhubanji's organization is doing across the country, or Switch On is doing, or the wonderfully powerful stories of our PRA representatives from COP, through a AV, through a nice illustrative playbook, because our attention span has gone down. I mean, and what point is a report if it also does not humanize what indigenous knowledge about bioconservation say in complex areas, what the informality of women actually mean in a coal economy? It is not understandable till the point we actually get to see the visuals. But sadly, that is not there. I mean, again, communication is all about just एक report बना दो, या एक glossy कुछ कर दो, हम छप देते हैं last में. We have to think beyond all of this a bit, and that's the reason why energy transition and its examples, if we look at countries in a country like Germany, Poland, also, I mean, all of you might be aware, I'll end with this. Ruhr Valley is something where majority of Germany's both east, I mean, at that time, West Germany, the coal mines were, which was the central pocket for Europe's coal transmission and energy. The entire Jharia to Durgapur via Asansol Raniganj coal belt was known as India's Ruhr of the East. Today, Ruhr Valley, after the entire coal transition, is now an educational and a tourism hub. Who did that? ऐसा तो नहीं है कि उधर बहुत सारे CSOs ही थे. It's the entities and the state as an institution, and people force them, community ownerships and a lot of things force them. So if we have to look at such kind of scalability, we need to bring in the nuances of communication, understanding of evidence, and knowing how to better engage policy stakeholders. And we would be happy actually to pick one of those strands with, if this leads to something good in the near future, we'd be very happy to actually work on this together.
Yeah, thanks, Arindam. In fact, I'll be visiting Ruhr Valley next week to gain some of the perspectives from there. While there are good examples and good systems that have taken up the initiatives, there are also movements of struggles and resistance in Hamburg Forest, for instance, that lay important learnings for us. But I completely echo your sentiments on the change of mindset required even at the philanthropic level, to not just look for short-term myopic outcomes, and instead look for a more not look at deliverable to deliverable, but more a longer term sustainability led things, and give the onus on the CSOs to treat complex issues in a complex and a detailed and a rigorous manner, as you rightly said. And you touched upon a very good point, which greatly segue into our last session, which is about the next steps, what we can do in this. And you mentioned about communications and enhancing capacities at various levels, increasingly moving towards AVs or short anecdotal storytelling formats of culminating our results. So if you can, if anybody else or you want to add on to sorry, yeah, Brinda?
Yeah, no. I think it's going great. I just wanted to take cognizance of that we are at 3:35 at the moment. So in case nobody has any issues, we continue for another 5-7 minutes to come at a logical closure. And in case anybody's in any hurry, please let us know. And sorry for extending and getting this time. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, as I said, this is just the last point that we would like to gain your perspectives on. It's again linked very well to what Arindam was stating in his previous remarks about what next, especially from a CSO front, from your own experience at your own organizations, what worked, what new things or what different things you tried actually worked in navigating the needles through this very complicated web of actors and landscapes, as well as what is required on a broader CSO level, not just from your own experience, but say a small organization which wants to do something and act as a bridge between different venues and actors. What should they focus on in terms of internal capacities, in terms of their capabilities to network, in terms of how do they go about projecting themselves and creating outputs and communicating their outputs at the right platforms and to right decision makers. So some things on those lines, and we have a slide which is the next slide, which can give you a broad idea of what our research has shown thus far, that these are just some of the broader headings under which we can also combine a lot of things that were said, be it capacity building, be it looking for capitulating on more external support. How can performance enhancement within the CSOs, if you introspect and look within, what are the pointers that stand out in that sense? And also a lot of philanthropies are also looking at widening the scope and ambit of efforts. Again, it's part of the problem also in some ways, where scaling in terms of breadth, sometimes we tend to compromise on the depth and the quality. But these are some of the spectrums that we found could be some good pointers to initiate discussions. What do you guys?
Just one more addition to what Sarthak said. I think something very particularly if you have any idea and knowledge on other platforms, CSO platforms that we might have missed, that you might have seen, not in the energy sector, but any other sector, any success cases, specifically in health and education and women empowerment, something that has been, India has been, doing and has a rich CSO diversity there. If you have certain specific pointers that this is what was done and how it was scaled, I think we would like to learn on that as well.
Yeah, anyone can who has some pointers. This is just the last point of our discussion. I agree it's been a bit long discussion, but yeah, if you can bear with us for one last round of interventions.
Maybe your closing statements, if you want to summarize like that.
Yeah.
No, nothing great, but there is only one small point that, how to involve the academic institutions, the knowledge institutions locally. That the CSO and academic institution make a good team of how the academic institution complement the works of the CSOs and how CSOs can take benefit. Unfortunately, at the moment, there's hardly any team building process amongst these two very important stakeholders.
Yeah, great point. Academia is a friend of civil society, so we need to think about more team building efforts on that front. True.
Absolutely. Maybe making more room for the skill is already there. The capacity is already there. That needs to be leveraged,
Yeah. Any last minute closing remarks? Yeah.
Madhuban, Ankita, anything? I think we heard a lot from Arindam, but Arindam, yes, in case you have more, we are very happy and ears to all of it.
No, I think it's good as a good beginning, I would believe, and we would be happy to also, we have had a conversation separately. That's another part, but if this is something as a group, we'd like to kind of look forward to and understand, maybe get kind of work out certain roles and modalities between the partners as part of maybe some kind of a cohesive and a collective effort. I think definitely there can be certain levers. None of us individually or collectively can change everything or start working on everything, but I think focusing on some of the commonalities, definitely a good beginning could be made, because there is already some good ground that has been covered by all of you in the respective work and previous initiatives, and a lot of very, very good, complex, thorough understanding. So somewhere down the line, I think the need of the hour could be to also kind of take it forward in a concerted, manner, and especially looking at a bit long-term focus, like picking up maybe a certain region, or maybe just two areas, maybe I don't know, 2 blocks or 2 districts or 2 coal mining regions, whatever works out the best. But looking at it as a staged kind of thing, where each entity present here can bring in their expertise in their part, and the other could kind of support, and then the other can bring in their expertise in that particular intended goal. And then I think it's a good way to kind of also start working on some of the things that have been discussed that collectively we would like to do, which probably others might not be doing, but or maybe doing in a different way.
Absolutely. I think data and evidence building is something that I really see a lot of players can come in and from their different aspects to converge on a very important aspect. That is something Arindam I really see and we discussed, right? So let's take this forward. But in case there are no other questions, I just would like to conclude certain things and inform the group about it. So this is, honestly, we wanted to, tell you this, that this is not an exercise only. We wanted to do it and get our inputs, etc. We want to do it in a very, very structured and an output-oriented format where we are creating, as Srini also mentioned, that, we have done that kind of CSO mapping exercise, and as well as creating a very, pointed paper and a summary document of all of this that we discussed together. And we would like to share, some of them. And if as individual institutions, not as any individual names, as we discussed before as well, we would want to, send this to a group of people, funding groups, etc., to say that this is how we decode the civil society action going forward. And we will write an individual email to all of you to seek your approval on this. And if you are a party for, if you are able to look at and provide and all, together, we have already done the paper and we would like you to be in the reviewing capacities, and we would love to have some of your views on that. And lastly, we'll be doing two regional convenings on CSOs, and where we'll be bringing in a lot more grassroots CSOs together in two states, which is one is Bhubaneswar and another being Gandhinagar. We would like to, understand from you that if there is an interest to do this, together, where we can bring in our networks together, where we can talk issues together more openly, candidly, again in a Chatham House rule banner, and see that, where is the next step? Because we feel that at least in the energy space, we are more nuanced. We know how to, put our views across, but there are a lot more CSOs who are doing a lot of good work. But, they just like, Arindam, you mentioned, right? They can represent themselves on their own. How do we work on some of those aspects? So that is something that we intend to do, and we are going to do the structuring for them. It's most likely going to be in the end of November sometime, and we wanted to touch base that we wanted to use some of your organizations, etc., as like anchor organizations, who can talk about them and motivate others to talk and open up in some of those discussions. So that's how we wanted to look at this conversation going, and together keep on working on, some of these important issues. So that's where I close, but I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation today that all of us had, and looking forward to bigger and better outcomes where community is definitely central to these discussions. Any last minute, anything that anybody has? Otherwise, we get a close. Sorry for running 15 minutes late. I think it has been intense and quite interesting conversation for us. Thank you, each one of you, Shirazji, Arindam, Madhubanji, Kunal, Ankita, for your time.
Thank you so much, Rinda. Thank you, everyone. It was really a very interesting conversation.
Thank you. Thank
Forward
you,
to more
everyone.
such interactions. Thank you.
Yeah, it was lovely. Yeah.
So we'll
Thank
reach
you
out
very
to each one of you individually over an email,
Sure.
communicating all of this together. Thank
Sure.
you.
Sure. Thank you very much.